Hi Stampers, this is Debbie Henderson from Debbie's Designs. Today I'm going to show you how to do partial embossing. I posted this card on my blog a couple of weeks ago and a lot of you guys wanted to know how to do this. If you'll notice closely, I used the honeycomb folder on this card, and in the center there's no embossing, and that's the little trick I'm going to show you how to do today. So let's get started with what we need for supplies today. For inks, we're going to need Old Olive, Rich Razzleberry, Calypso Coral, and Memento Black. We're going to need a sponge. Oh, I also forgot to add in there the crumb cake, and that goes with the sponge, so you do need crumb cake ink also. For stamp sets, I'm going to be using the Gorgeous Grunge, and I'm going to be using this image right here. The Love is Kindness stamp set, and this is a single stamp set that can be purchased. For cardstock, you're going to need 2 pieces. Rich Razzleberry, 11 inches by 4 1/4 inches, scored at 5 1/2 in the center and folded. And Whisper White, 5 1/4 inches by 4 inches. Now, in order to create the oval in the center that is not embossed, you're going to need 3 layers of the cardboard that you find in back of your designer paper packages. And what I've done is I've cut 3 ovals. Let me flip it over first before I explain what's on the front. I cut 3 of these cardboard pieces with the ovals from the Ovals Collection die, as you see, and then I layered them on top of each other and glued them to each other. And what I've done on the front is written down what my sandwich is, so I will explain this further when we put this through the Big Shot machine. I did do another sample just to show you that you can do it with different embossing folders. This one is from the Happy Heart embossing folder that's located in the Occasions 2015 catalog. And again, you'll notice that the embossing is all on the outside and nothing in the center in the shape of an oval. I'm going to bring in my Big Shot machine so I can show you how we do the sandwich. So we're going to use the honeycomb embossing folder, and I'm going to put my Whisper White piece of cardstock, and I'm going to center it in my folder. So that's about where I want it. And for your sandwich, you're going to use your platform with tab 1 and tab 2. Once you have tab 1 and tab 2 in place, you're going to put your embossing folder with your cardstock piece inside. And then you're going to lay your cardboard piece that you created with the 3 layers of cardboard. And that's what I have on the bottom here. I actually write down what I need for sandwich so I don't have to look it up each time. And what's going to happen when we put pressure with the Big Shot is, as you notice, there's nothing in the middle here, so there's nothing to push down on your embossing folder. So that's why it's only going to emboss in this area that has the cardboard on it. So on top of that, you're going to need 1 clear plate. So we're going to run this through. And as you'll see, I don't know if you can see that, here's my oval in the center that has not been embossed. And now we're going to get ready to do our sponging and our stamping. So now I'm going to bring in my crumb cake ink and my sponge. And I'm actually going to do the debossed side of the embossing folder this time, where this one you can see where the bumps stick out, and this one they're actually indented, just to show you that we can use both sides. And I'm going to ink my sponge and mostly work the ink from the outside in. And you'll see by doing it from the outside in, without re-inking the sponge, it'll get lighter as you go towards the center, because we are going to have a stamped image in the center and we don't want the color to peek through the stamped image too much. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the stencil and we'll move on and stamp our image using Memento Black. So I'm going to ink my stamp. And I'm going to center the image inside of the oval. And now we're going to do a little bit of coloring. Today we're going to color with blender pen and your ink pads. And the way to do that is to push in the center of your ink pad. And you're going to hear it crack and creak, but that's okay. Then you're going to open up your ink pad and we're going to be using the ink that wells up on top of the lid. So we're going to start out with the Old Olive. And I'm going to dip my blender pen, and you don't need a lot of ink. So I'm just going to color the stems to start out with and move on to the leaves. And I always start where the shadows would lay. In this case, it would be around the wrapping of your stamped image. And then I just work my way up and it gets lighter as I do that. So you can see the variation in color. So I'm just going to continue to finish off the leaves and the stems. I love coloring this way. It just reminds me of the watercolor effect. And I'm going to clean off my blender pen and move on to the next color. So now I'm going to bring in the Calypso Coral. And again, just dip a little bit. And for this one, the darker edges, of course, would be where the wrapping paper overlaps. And on the outside edges. So I'm just going to just make an outline. And then I'm going to come in and go lighter. And if you just drag the color, it gets lighter as you go towards the middle. I don't know if you can see how the color varies from the edges of the outline image into the center where you have more of a whitish tint. And now I'm going to clean my blender pen off again and bring in my rich razzleberry to do the tulips. Again, I'm just starting the darker areas, and sometimes I even wipe the color off so it becomes lighter. I'll just do one more of these just so you can get a feel for it. And then sometimes I go back and add more color to add a little bit more of a dark shade to it. Let me hold that up so you can see. You can see where it starts out dark and goes lighter as you go to the top of the tulip. So I'm going to finish these off and stop my camera for a minute, and I'll be right back. Okay, now we have a finished watercolored sponged oval. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to remove some of the honeycombs like I did on this one. So I'm just going to come in and use my paper snips. And I'm going to use the lines from the embossing as my guide. And you can cut as many or as little of these off as you want. It's up to you. It's your card. And this one's going to look a little different than my first card because the embossing, the honeycombs are actually placed differently because of the way I placed my embossing folder. Let's do one more. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is glue this to my rich raspberry layer. I'm going to fold this over with my bone folder. And then I'm going to bring in some Post-it notes just to cover the edges of where I cut. And we're going to add some grunge. So I'm going to bring in the black Memento ink and my gorgeous grunge stamp image. And I'm just going to keep moving this around just to cover my edges so I don't get any on the stamped image layer. As you can see, my little ink splatters are all done. And of course you could have done this all over your rich raspberry layer before you glued your stamped panel to the card, but a Post-it note works just as well. And to finish off the card, I'm going to bring in some rhinestone jewels. And I'm going to use all three sizes, or actually one of the medium and two of the little ones, just to make a trio. And then I'm just going to add a few here and there within the honeycombs. And there you have it. That's how you do the partial embossing. And again, just to review, 3 layers of designer paper cardstock with the oval cut out, and then glue them all layered together. And just for a reference tool, you can write down right on the mask that you made what you use for layers when running through the Big Shot. I hope you have enjoyed my tutorial for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or drop me a comment on my YouTube video link. And if you'd like any of these supplies, you can visit my online store. Thanks for stopping by.